Okay, I'd like to call the June 20th, 2024 Tri-Town Board of Health meeting to order. Uh, the first item on the agenda is the approval of the 1:25:24 minutes. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
I make the motion for 30 minutes.
Second, any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Minutes are approved. Thank you. And then now we have updates on the UDF transportation. That's the dump and the disposal plans. Does anybody have anything to say about this? Well, the last meeting we had was January the 25th, 2024. So just to put a little bit in perspective, since then we've had Senator Mark and Representative Pignatelli and Senator Warren and Senator Markey write letters to the EPA and to the GE respectively to protest the transportation plan that GE originally put forward last fall. And we've had recently a letter from the EPA to GE stating that they felt that the plan was not satisfactory, and they recommended that there be much more of a diligent, I'm using my word diligent, but that was the essence of it as far as I could tell, diligent effort to look at railroad as an alternative means and hydraulic dredging, and that they should consider that hydraulic dredging was not just a possibility, but that it was something that they should plan to do. So that, I think, otherwise we don't have anything back from GE, particularly we're still waiting. GE has wasted an entire year. Really, if you look at that EPA letter to them stating what's going on. And of course, EPA says the time is of the essence. And so this actually constitutes for our communities an increased risk due to GE's delay in putting forth the adequate plan. Does anybody else have anything to add?
The Lennox Select Board last night had their meeting and they approved the draft of the letter saying the same thing. They really want some more in-depth studies about using rail. That's where they're going to send a letter to them. So,
Good.
yeah.
I make a quick comment in general. I'm relatively new to this, but it seems to me that coming into it, that there's to get a thanks to the Tri-Town representative, Charlie Kenny, for the letter that was written with such force and emphasis, saying that there needs to be a re-looking at this whole thing. I really give you a lot of credit for getting the EPA to step back and put more pressure on GE for using rail or other options rather than just letting this go. It would have been very easy to let things slide. So I really want to compliment Tri-Town and Charlie for the efforts in changing how the EPA.
It was the entire community that did this. And we have.
You cited in the paper.
With the line.
So I
We
still
have
want to encourage everybody.
3,000 signatures from people in all of the towns, all of it. We have the 5 town select boards. This is a community effort. The community has done this, and I'm very happy that finally our representatives are stepping in and backing the communities up. So I certainly don't want to claim any credit for anything like that because it's community.
The Tri-Town efforts, people of the
Tri-Town has really been good.
Absolutely.
I would say that.
It's acknowledged that, publicly acknowledged that.
What I would say at this point is that if anybody has anything special to say about this, fine. Otherwise, I'll move on to the next agenda. All right, but let's see, the proposed fee schedule. You want to bring that up?
Yes, I'm trying to share the screen so you guys can see it. So basically so the Tri-Town Boards of Health are the authority to set our department fees for all our permit fees and certain inspections that we do. The last time we updated our fees was 2018. And prior to that was a very long time before that. And so we promised ourselves in 2018 pre-pandemic that we would revisit our fees to not let it get so far beyond, because it's really 90% of what we do is in the commercial business community, very low percent private. And so we talked then that we were going to revisit routinely, we try to stay on pace with inflation, cost of living efforts, just gradually increase our fees, and the pandemic hit, and, you know, all kind of went crazy. And so as we were working on our FY 25 budget, as the boards know, there was a significant increase in the budget. And it passed with flying colors, which was 21% increase to cover staffing, salaries, and so on and so forth. And part of those conversations was working with the finance committees and saying, look at, you know, where the boards are looking at upping their fees to kind of close a little bit of the loop. Now, we'll never be able to capture 100% of the operating budget through our fees. If that were the case, we would have a $3,000 pool permit. And so we try to make fees that are sensible, that captures the cost of doing business. And so, so it's been 6 or 7 years now, and I did in your packet, there's a lot of numbers here. So basically there's a 10%, a 15%, and a 20% increase. And so the goal tonight is to just have a discussion about it, and then in the fall, propose an actual hearing. Now, we're not required by statutory requirements to hold a public hearing to set fees, but it makes sense, and that's what we did in 2018. We put a draft together, we put it in the paper, we notified all our retailers, all the people that we permit, and we give them an opportunity to come in. And the goal would be to, at that meeting, approve, deny, or alterate, or vary my request. I'm leaning towards 20%. I think we should do, and there's a couple factors that go into that. The budget went from last year to this year, 21%. I went back and looked at the 2018 budget to the 2025 budget, and that's 120% increase. But you can't, it's apples to oranges a little bit, because there's a lot that went into that significant increase in the operating budget. We added staff. And so what I did is I looked at the inflation CPI index calculator, and I kind of plugged in what was the cost of the dollar in 2018 and what is it today. And it gave us around a 25% increase, which is reflective with all these different costs that are going up. I think it's starting to level out a little bit. So I'm thinking I would propose to the boards a 20% increase across the
You
board.
just don't do a annual percentage increase, so you
It's-
don't have to wait all those years.
Great question, Joanne, but there's a lot that goes into the fee increase. Now, passing it is easy. It's on the back end with all the permitting. They have to make significant adjustments, and that costs even, so it's good to do this every few years. I don't think all towns do it every single year. I think they, Mike's the town manager in Stockbridge. I don't know what select boards do. But we want to try to every few years, at least try to be somewhat on pace. We'll never keep up.
You say in the fall, the organizations that you permit have an input too?
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
should.
obviously, they wouldn't want it 20%.
Of course they would.
Yeah.
Uh,
So what input do they have? I mean, they're
Well,
not gonna agree
it's-
with it.
But
It's a nice way to break it.
on the face of it,
Yeah.
we did
Sorry.
in 2018 had people show up.
Yeah.
And present, I mean, I think fees are going up across the board. I mean, I don't know if you've been to the grocery store lately or eaten out. My burger is now like $15 and they don't tell the consumer, people do what they gotta do. And
Yeah.
I think there's value of not doing it in secret, because next thing you know, there's a fee increase in January. And there'll be more complaints saying that they didn't know about it than people show up.
So you're not asking permission, you're just telling them what you're gonna do.
Being transparent.
It's trying to be
He's
transparent.
From us
But,
as to what percentage.
but it's the boards that make the decision.
Right,
If
right.
someone comes in and pushes you hard and says,
Then
it's up to you to decide,
Right.
but, the operating budget did go up 22%, and there was zero debate or question of the rationale why.
Are they gonna write that the cost of the burgers went up because of this?
And you know, this is the least, one of my least favorite things to do in the public health realm is charging fees for what we do, but it is a you know, the online permitting has gone up, health insurance has gone up, fuel's gone up, you know, we use our own vehicles to do our inspection, so all these costs are going up. And I think the fees need to make appropriate adjustments to that. So there's a lot of data in here. The goal would be to present something in the fall, but it's really meant for having this discussion in June. Set some type of meeting in September and.
Sure. All right, so a couple of years ago, we studied the Tri-Town budget in detail because we were looking at revamping some of the systems. Remember, we did that with all the boards,
Yep.
with all of the finance committees, and which were up before the select board. So at that point, the way I understood it is that about 85% or 90% of the work done by Tri-Town was inspecting commercial establishments. But as I saw, as I remember correctly, I don't know what it is today, about 80 to 85% of the income really came from residential taxes. I mean, when you look at the town's paying and the fact that the residential tax is doing it. So in essence, yeah, I think even with this 20% increase, Tri-Town does these fees. What would you say if we had a 20% increase, what would be the percentage of payment of the fee towards the actual work, effort, and cost that a business would be making? Would it be 100%? Would it be 50%? Well, that would be a useful thing to look at.
I mean, in 2018, when we set the last fee schedule, we actually broke down true costs of what it really spent. And the fees, I mean, I would say around 50%, because if we calculate our operating budget, which is around 550,000, we bring in about 250, 220, about 50% of that. It would take a lot of effort to figure that out, but I would probably think that we probably recoup 50% of the fees of our operating costs, and probably hold, and even with the 20% increase, but now our budget's at 585,000. So there's always going to be that around that 50% gap. If we do a 20% increase, that will bring our revenue up to about 260, 270,000, which is still about half of the operating budget. So around 50%, I would think out loud about that.
Maybe businesses are having a hard time too. So I think we should, we'll be thinking about a lot of different. I think this is going to be an interesting discussion.
Yeah, of course. So it's this hotel motel, that's a yearly fee they pay for the permit.
Yeah, so I can quickly go through what this all is. So yes,
My question,
permits are annual.
how have Airbnbs been included in this?
They're not included in this.
Yeah,
Yeah, but it's gonna have an impact on more commercial properties that pay these things.
So we should have a separate discussion as an agenda and if the board wants. But what I will tell you about short-term rentals is that I think Lennox and it's not so much Stockbridge, but some other towns were looking at the bylaws a while back. Lennox started this where they were going to try to mandate inspections. This was a while ago. And I said, if you do that, you'll get a budget request from me just to cover short-term rentals, because we don't have the staffing for that. And so when they wrote the bylaw, it was the Board of Health may inspect. If we get complaints and things like that, we sort of deal with that on the housing code side or a public nuisance, which is part of our regular job. We get calls all the time on garbage, tall grass, mattresses, things like that. It's all part of public health. But short-term rental, we don't permit short-term rentals at all in our fee schedule, because we don't do it on a systematic basis.
Is it up to each town to decide what they want to do?
Well, they don't require us to do it. They can't make the Board of Health do something the Board of Health doesn't want to do, technically speaking, unless there's a law.
I was just looking at the impact on.
Yeah.
You know, businesses, hotels, they do pay this, they're being undercut by Airbnb.
Totally.
For that purpose exclusively, not just the
Yeah.
family renting. room.
I totally get it. You know, short-term rentals, Lyft, Uber, they're undercutting the train. It just, the world's changing, and I think the regulatory mechanisms still need to get caught up. And so, like, short-term rentals, I think I calculated one time, there's over 400 plus short-term rentals. We don't have the staff to do that. And so if we ever go down that road, Elias, where we want to do that, there will be a fee schedule set for that, and we would have to hire people. So
So can I just ask you about this third Senator Gordon, I'm sorry.
10%, 50%.
You're saying that's the potential increase, but what that really, that's not the potential increase, that's the total figure after the potential.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
So I think
Yeah.
you should clarify that because
Yeah.
it looks like that's the potential increase that you're talking
Oh,
about.
I didn't-
Yeah, we just wrote, we wrote potential because it's three different percentages.
Yeah, but it's the total plus.
Yeah.
The potential increase. Is that right?
Yes,
That would be
totally,
the fee.
yeah. So it'd be 412.50 with a 10% increase.
Okay, so we'll be having a discussion, a more involved discussion, I hope, about this when we have the hearing, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, and that'll be in the fall.
Any other,
Does anybody else have,
any other questions?
any other questions? Is there anything else to add? Anybody up on the screen? Are we missing anybody on the screen?
Looking at this inflation calculator that you also included. So in May 2024, something in 2018 cost $100, so a permit cost $100 in 2018. And then with a 20% increase, it costs $120. We're actually saving them $5.07.
Well, yeah, I don't know if we're saving them, yeah,
Well,
but
potentially, it's a
but
way to
the-
sell it,
the-
that's the way to sell it.
the request is under what the 25% is.
Right.
Yes, you know,
Get the bargain.
It's a bargain.
I don't think we're saving any money yet, because they have.
Well, that's
What's a bargain?
right there, black and white. Thing.
Okay, are we missing anybody on the screen?
Bob,
And Dr. Riedici. Yeah.
John, do you have any questions?
No, go carry on. I'm listening. Yep.
All right.
Okay, if there's no more topic to be discussed about this, then we'll move on to the next item, which is the Tri-Town Health Department's relocation. Do you want to give us a
Yes,
little
so-
background on it?
So basically, in summary, the town of Lee has been approved in some form or another to build a new public safety building, which is gonna be in this location. They're gonna be tearing this down. You know, initially, I was on those meetings, but as time went on and looking at the cost to build out and our square footage, we cover 3 towns. Although we're housed in Lee, we work for other towns, and I didn't see a way through us being part of that public safety building. Because Lee would be essentially covering, taxpayers in Lee would be essentially covering costs for the other towns. And so it just became a thing. And so like Lee would be solely on the hook for, I don't know what they calculated, but it was a lot of money. And we can't charge Lennox and Stockbridge outrageous rent. It just doesn't make sense. And so, as time went on, you know, it became clear that we needed to find a new home. Tri-Town's been in this building since the 60s. We were one of the original tenants here, been here a long time. You know, we're up to almost 13 employees now, and so we may need to be moving in the next few months. And I would have hoped that we could have figured out some better planning, because I would have put some requests into the FY25 budget on cost of moves and stuff. And Mike's here from Stockbridge, and he can jump up on the table if you want. And so initially, what was really on the table, at least in my mind, was Lennox is building the public safety building. They just broke ground. And so my only option at the time was to either look at commercial space with a realtor and charge the town whatever that cost is with a lease, which is complicated, or we try to find a location. And so in my mind, with the public safety building in Lennox being built and approved, thought process was maybe us taking over the Lennox PD base. So it was never a formal conversation, but I did, Diane and I talked, the Lennox board talked. Conversations with Chris Ketchum ensued, but it wasn't anything formal. And then with Chris leaving, I think next week, I did do a tour up there, and that space is not the greatest.
No.
It's in the basement, and it wouldn't be available for another 2 years.
Yep.
So if we have 6 to 8 months to vacate, we need to figure this out. And Tri-Town's not in a position to go full remote. We have foot traffic, we have a laboratory, we have employees, we got 90 years worth of files, and Mike and I engaged in several conversations about the possibility of moving to Stockbridge. There's space there. We've met, we've looked at things, and so we're at a point now where we're trying to firm up the possibility of us moving to Stockbridge. There's going to be some type of upfront cost for moving. I actually have a moving company coming out Monday to give me a quote, hopefully. But so there's going to be some costs associated. And I'm more than happy to move to Stockbridge. It's an actual real office. And without being frank, I'm kind of sick and tired of being in the dump. Everyone's getting brand new buildings that are costing tens of millions of dollars, and I don't think Tri-Town deserves to be in another basement with ants and everything else. Stockbridge offers a really great space. It's clean. It's taken care of. We're not stuck in the basement. And I'm getting the sense that we're wanted in Stockbridge. And so there's still things to sort through. I think one second, just got a quick summary. I think Stockbridge Select Board would want to approve the idea of us moving. I need to figure out the costs of the move, and then we need to figure out the build out of the space. That could happen in FY25. It could happen at a special town meeting of the 3 towns. It could be in FY26 for us just to get by for a few months. So there's a few things to sort through, but I'm feeling really happy that we have potentially a place to move to that's actually real offices.
2 questions. One is, can it be permanent? It's not something that 2 or 3 years down the road, you or town would say, we would like that space for something else, or is that just a gamble?
No, so, right away when this came up, and we realized that, there had to be something done for about 18 months here.
Yes.
Okay. I looked around my building, I reached out to Jim, and I said, Jim, we can fit you in here. So we can do one of 2 things. We can do temporary, that won't be a problem. We can get you in. I know Lennox could potentially build out the basement of the police station, some type of build. Or looking around the building, we have a bunch of space that can be made available. I would recommend that we would enter into, which would be the maximum we need approval at town meeting for a 20-year. To move you into the building and make it worth whatever retrofitting we have. Right now, I have 3 conference rooms, one which barely gets used, one that doesn't get used, and one that's used all the time. So one of those I'd reconfigure in offices. We've got some extra storage room, and then some offices that I have a person in the office that's probably close to half the size of this by themselves. So we have a lot of space, and I think that it's a municipal function that then we get the benefit of having a great in Stockbridge where people can walk right in.
Is it
So-
at the town hall or?
We were in its town hall, right on the first floor with the rest of the staff. We didn't think about downstairs, but we realized when we say downstairs, our downstairs is our council on aging, Patrick across the other. It's not a basement. It's a nice space. Yes. So we still need to look at exactly how we configure. And, I did talk originally trying to figure out if we could get an entire wing area or whether or not we'd have to split up some of the staff, put some over here, some there. Those are the logistics we still haven't fully completed, but we have at least looked at it and said, yeah, there is enough room. Now, how do we make it work? And
I just don't want to see Jim have to
No,
5 years from now, have to
Yeah.
move again. I mean, I'm hoping, you guys are here for a long time and wherever you go next, I hope you'd be there for a long time again. This moving is gonna be awful.
I'm not interested in a short-term move.
Okay.
And if Stockbridge is willing to host us for the duration, we need to make that happen, because, I mean, I don't think it'll be super expensive for the move, because half the stuff we're not taking, it's junk. But and also too, I think, so Mike knows this, and I know the boards know this, we've already begun the process of digitizing some of our records. They just started, so like the first wave, I used a grant to cover those costs. But they were gonna try to pick up files, and I said to the guy, oh, I have a year and a half. Plenty of time, and if I have to be out in 6 months, I'm gonna ask them for a separate quote change order to take all our files to their warehouse. And then go back to the towns in FY '26 and ask for that remaining money. Not move it twice, and so we're sort of consolidating in a way, and so we should be able to maximize the space with the staff. And some staff with our nurses, they're kind of in and out. Some of our coordinators are kind of in and out. Really the mainstays are like myself, Zach, the inspectors are in and out stuff. So I would like to, move and engage that we move there full time. And then we have to figure out the cost to build out. If we need to, I was telling Mike the other day, if we move by December, we can figure out temporary setup of the offices until we can figure out the costs of the build out, which is not gonna be cheap, by the way. We're probably talking $100,000 when it's all said and done, with merging the IT systems and walls and space and desks, but that's the 3 towns pay their percent as they are, because it's a one-time cost typically versus us leasing space every single year. Now, we don't want to be leasing space, and we're a high functioning department. We can't be shoved into a basement or told to work remote.
So my second question is more of a statement than a question. When you do have some idea of what your costs are gonna be, could you possibly put it on the higher end, like the 20% end? And if you don't need it, then peel it back instead of us having to keep on going back. Make it whatever you think your Cadillac would be, even if you don't get
Well,
it.
and Mike will play a role in helping me figure it
Okay.
out, because it's his
All right.
offices.
Because it's hard to keep going back to finance.
Look, if we're on the second floor in a very nice building, we're not throwing up pine cubicles. We need to retrofit the offices to meet the needs of not only the town residents of Stockbridge, but it's their town hall, but to meet the needs of today's day and age of staffing. We're not gonna just throw a desk in the corner and tell people, whatever. Can we get by short term? Absolutely, but it's the 3 town managers working with us in this board to kind of frame out those costs. And then we have to figure out, I don't know if it's a special town meeting, I don't know, but
Yeah,
we need to
that's
figure
gonna be
that
a little
out.
bit of a tricky part, because I know originally the discussion was 2026 movement.
Mhm.
And now it's, this movement is happening in 2025. And fiscally, so that becomes a concern. The only concern that's been raised is that they would want to build out, especially if it's on the first floor, done the character of the building. The hallway is a Norman Rockwell Museum display, so we do get tourist busing people in. We want to keep that, but, like I said, right now we have 3 conference rooms. So the 2 that would remain would be available for the staff to use for meetings and things like that. The building is air conditioned.
Clean.
Yeah, it's clean, yeah, it's, the majority of the offices are on a generator, so we can run, off the line if we need
Yeah,
to.
for our
and run
vaccine
some
storage.
emergency shelter and the rest, so, there's numerous advantages to our building, and based on the amount of staffing that we have, we just happen to have the space right now and can accommodate, so, I think right now is, getting the 3 select boards together too. Because we're gonna need the approval of all 3 towns to move together. I'll work with Jim and work with the town managers and discuss, what the move looks like. We found the architect company that did the original build out, if we have to do some of the build out, and it could be just moving in. Like Jim said, it might have to be move in and move around, work happens in the West, but we think it's definitely doable. It wouldn't be here if we couldn't do something long term. But not I'd just be here saying, listen, we can help you. in 6 months. But we can definitely, I think, do something. And I love the fact that if there's a health issue, I can just walk down the hall and say, hey, Jim. So, or Zach. So, yes. Selfish on my.
The staff's on board. They, you know, and I try to be respectful. In the 25 years I've been doing this, the one thing that I despise is this building. Like every day, there's something going on in this building. It's, you know, it's not healthy. I won't say it's unsafe, but it's disgusting. And, you know, and the morale of the staff is something I've been managing for a long time, and they're ecstatic about the potential move to Stockbridge. It's walkable, you know, it's just bright, there's windows and, you know, and while we've been in league forever, it's just, it'll be an adjustment, but it is what it is. And, you know, all our permitting's online. Yes, we still get foot traffic, but it's not that far away, and it's, you know, it's no different than Stockbridge and Lennox residents having to drive down here. It's no different. And, you know, just to be in a home, I think, I never like to use the term deserving, but like, we're pretty deserving to be in a nice building. Please, people. Don't throw baby in the, don't shove baby in the corner, put it in the basement, put it somewhere nice.
And I believe that once we figure out a general idea where it is, somebody at least do just an idea of what the offices would look like. I have spoken to Chris Britton here, Lee, about the possibility that, you know, there's a bond already in place for the new building. Part of it's got to be cleaned out of this, so we have a little of that, and both that and the communities for their share of it. But to get this ball rolling in 2025, because they're going to need you out. We have to have the space right now. Lennox does not. Lee does not. We're the only one that is the game. You guys are good on moving, looking at it as a permanent move, then I will work with Jim and the 3-town managers on that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your offer.
We appreciate it from. I would say just from having dealt with Jim for quite a long time, that we, and I know all of us are grateful to the town of Lee for getting a place for Tri-Town in the first place and putting everything together so that Tri-Town can function, because Lee did take on the responsibility of managing all of the economics of the thing there. And yes, there's always something going on that isn't 100% between the towns, and I'm sure that Jim will find something wrong with my town eventually too. And so, but everybody has their thing, and right now I think this is a very positive thing potentially for Tri-Town. It's a time to do it. So thank you, Mike, for coming in for spirit.
Would it make sense? I mean, there's not a lot of information to present, but do we want to take a motion to support the idea of us moving the Stockbridge? Do you want something like that, Mike? Would that help you or wait?
I think it doesn't hurt to say that right now you want to focus on a permanent move, not a temporary.
Yeah,
Because
you should do that.
that's the thing I'd bring back to my select board and then say, okay, they want to make a permanent move. And then bring back to them a idea of what the building would look like based on a permanent move.
Okay. So someone would like to make a motion on the concept of a permanent move, potentially the Stockbridge.
Well, can I make a suggestion about that? We all want to support Jim, whatever he decides. And I think just from what I'm reading here, there's some figuring out that needs to be done. And so what I'd like to make, I'd like to make a motion myself about this, which is what you're asking, to say that we support whatever Tri-Town figures out is the best way to do this. I think that's something that we can say, and especially after we've had time to look at all of the details. And but I think going ahead with looking at this in detail is the worst. So I'd like to make a motion that we support Jim in his effort to go ahead and look at this in detail. Second, anybody second? All in favor?
Aye.
Is there some discussion?
Oh, thank you. Yes, so
the one want to bring up one point, and that's that's an important spiritual motion to support Jim and Tri-County. But the one concrete thing that got brought up is it would be helpful for you to bring it to your select people. And the wording that a motion would contain that says, we would like to support the Tri-Town staff in whatever they want to do is not what he's looking for. He wants something more narrowed
Would you
down.
amend that for me, please, and make a more specific motion?
Yeah, so well, if there's any other discussion about this particular motion?
I would prefer that a motion be made that the Tri-Town board support a permanent move, potentially the Stockbridge
Right,
for the relocation.
Okay.
Please don't leave it up to the staff.
right, that's my point, is,
Okay, so we have to have, right now, what we have to have is the discussion of my original motion, which I'm withdrawing.
That wasn't seconded, by the way.
I'll withdraw myself.
But I can withdraw it, but anyway, the idea here is, I think we've heard through the discussion, a better motion that we can go forward with based on what I was saying in the first place. So Bob, you want to phrase?
sure,
that
I would
for us?
propose a motion that Tri-Town support the Tri-Town staff in their efforts and making a permanent move. Not presumably, potentially, or initially, but, or let's find a word here, to the town office in the available town space, the town office space in Stockbridge. Something to that effect. Yeah, not initially, I'm trying, tentatively or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What am I?
We don't need perspective.
Any-
We just like to support the.
Okay.
Write that down, and then we can just,
Yeah,
Play word
find a better word than initially
then you
considering.
can read it, and we'll come back to this.
Yeah,
After you write it down. Is that
all right.
Yeah. Giving you.
Could be a support, possibility.
Have you talked about possible?
Explore the possibility of moving permanent.
Yeah.
That's permanent.
The possibility of a permanent move to stop it.
Then I could take it to my board, if they support the concept of it, then me and Jim will
Yeah.
explore in detail. And then obviously final approvals would have to be adopted by everyone. Question about the paper?
The wallpaper, I was wondering if we were talking about that. Done. I think that's a permanent. We wouldn't be able to wear a vest all day and we had a current right now, really.
Yeah. Not at all.
Are you waiting for me?
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Is everybody meditating?
Just
I
wait.
could put the Jeopardy on time up.
Fine to take a deep breath.
And if anybody isn't familiar with the Stockbridge Town Hall, please, 9 to 4, we're open, stop by.
This is being done.
All right.
The office is gonna be contiguous?
So that's what I am, we're looking at that, whether we can or can't or not. That was originally a concept. Some of it may be around how much would we have to build out if we tried to do it that way. So,
Square feet do you estimate would be necessary for all the staffing?
well, we looked at this, Jim felt as though the space was adequate
It's adequate.
and we're gonna have to work within the defined space, but, like I said, by taking out one thing is the current selectmen's room, which some of you are probably familiar with. The possibility of that as one of the offices that's come forward and taking, actually, this is the newest one,
Yeah.
is the possibility of taking a planning room,
Yeah.
that into the selectmen's office. Because the good thing is we don't have a lot of, it's only been 15 years. No, so it isn't like it's forever this room has been. We can look at the different options, but we can explore that. That selectmen's office, when you consider both parts of it, there's a whole other office size. That's probably at least 5 people at least. Then there's the Council on Aging old office downstairs, that's another office. And then that's where it gets into, is there some spacing? And I know Jim also mentioned couple of positions potentially could be remote work, which is an office. admin. So we'll have to look at it as a whole. We've only just begun exploring, but we think there is, we get to those numbers. What exactly, how much square feet do we, have? How much, and then detail it out further. But right now, we think it is, every room's wired with internet, every room's air conditioned. There's already a whole bunch of pluses. There's no build out necessarily like in Lennox and.
It's a wonderful space. I mean, the fact it's gonna be a major improvement.
Yeah.
I don't know if they'd all be together, so it'd be downstairs, it would be upstairs, that they all feel together as a group is.
I think we'd explore the possibility of keeping a wing area contiguous, except for maybe those programs that Jim has
Yeah.
identified very rarely come in. That would maybe just be adequate to have a space
It's like a
downstairs.
workstation kind of thing, but.
So I think, Bob, you're ready for your motion.
Some wording, yeah. So, my motion, reads, the Tri-Town Board supports a permanent move of Tri-Town Board of Health offices potentially to the offered available space in Stockbridge Town office, Town Hall, is it, or considered the Town Hall, in the Stockbridge Town Hall. Simple, straightforward.
I'll second
We have a
that.
second of that motion?
Yes, I
Wendy,
second.
you seconding it? Okay. All in favor, any discussion of the motion?
Okay, you want?
Is that okay with you, Brian? Is that
Yes.
good with you?
And I'm gonna bring it to my board to explore, formally explore this possibility, and then we'll begin formally looking at what needs to be done instead of our impromptu discussion.
Yeah, I mean, a ton is left out, timing, build out, extended build out, co-locating or et cetera, doesn't matter.
That's the work you do.
The only concrete thing I'm trying to address is the ability of you to
Yep.
go to your board.
Yes.
And spiritually for you to know,
Yeah.
which hopefully we don't have to say, that we want what works for Triton.
And your status.
Are we
Yeah, yeah.
satisfied with that? Anything else to say about it?
Okay.
Okay, shall we have a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. John? Anybody opposed? Okay, thank you again for coming.
Right.
Thanks,
Mike.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Mike.
Look forward to working with you on it.
Yes.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Okay, so the next agenda item is the H5N1. This is the avian flu. And there were some concerns about this raised, and I think that this is a current issue. Been in the Times, and there's been a number of other things. Would anybody like to begin the discussion?
I don't know what the baseline information is. I will have too long, too much detail. The current strain that has been circulating in wild, mostly aquatic fowl, and it's been it's caused the falling of, I think the latest figure is probably something to the order of 100 billion commercial crop birds. Reared its head in the United States in roughly 2021-22. Let me just clarify, when people refer to this as highly pathogenic avian flu, what they're talking about is highly pathogenic to the birds. Also strains of flu that are low pathogenicity. The type F, bad for birds, not necessarily bad for the species. Although it's clear that this one is causing something in some animals occasionally. Thing that brings it to the fore is that there have been, within the last year, 3 cases of transmission to humans. Of the 3, actually 4 cases, because there was one in Colorado, 22. There has been no evidence of transmission from any of those individuals to others. It seems to become about if they become infected by direct contact with ill birds, either as part of their occupation. The fellow 22 is involved in calling an infected frog. But it's not, there's been no respiratory transmission, which is what we usually think of as being necessary for starting the human pathogen pandemic with influenza. So far, the biggest thing has been transmission of the influenza virus, the H5N1 virus, to dairy cattle. Not surprising, considering what dairy cattle live and around ponds, lakes, water, they attract waterfowl. It's probably a higher by eating contaminated grass and other droppings of saliva. Birds. The real question comes up whether this will pose a significant threat to the population. And as long as it does not transmit readily from person to person, like the risk from the CDC pandemic is low. There is our efforts, and it's important to say in terms of tracking, obviously it's the CDC that's tracking the incidence of influenza A through their usually influenza monitoring programs. The influenza A test will pick up the stream of virus, but unfortunately will not identify it as a particular strain that it is. That requires additional testing. Testing is available primarily through the state at CDC. State boards of health CDC. As far as what it does to the cows seem to be by and large to weather the infection fairly easily. They're off their feed and milk maybe, milk production may decline. They can see that normal hearing milk, by and large, spontaneous recovery for the cows seems to be within the rule, not the exception. There have been other, and this is where it gets a little confusing to me. There have been other outbreaks of other strains of H5, H5 strains of influenza in the past that have been seen primarily on underdeveloped countries that have had a case fatality rate just nearly 50%. And that's important. There are 880 some odd cases that have been reported in Togo by the World Health Organization. Even amongst those, there's only one instance that we can cite the kind of transmission from person to person. It was a family group. All of the guys. So right now, I think saying this, like protect the people who work in the field, dairy workers, people who raise commercial farm, so they even have a few chickens in the backyard. And then, so, monitor. Spread. Achieve the ability to transfer the people code, transfer from one person to another via a respiratory rep. Sit back and watch. So I was asked, and I do not have the list of what Massachusetts is doing. In terms of their monitoring of that. But wait, no, it's safe, it was patched up. Again, in Massachusetts, I'm not sure whether they have permitted the sale or not.
Yes, but, Lordstown and,
Certain scenarios, yes.
and my friend Mr. Russell.
Yeah.
One in Williamstown and one in Russell.
Yeah.
At least in Western.
Yeah, I think that's to be safe, and I'm not sure whether that should be permitted.
Yeah, it's the Department of Ag, I think, deals with that, DPH. We used to do all the pasteurization stuff locally. The state's sort of taking that over. They kind of like let us know. I think in certain circumstances or volume or something, raw milk is allowed, but it's not like everyone's selling raw milk. Very rare.
It is interesting to see the ordinary fats don't do as well as the cows do. Because they end up with 100% mortality. Yes. And then it's like, can it be contained, prevented, treated? It can be, actually, it is the currently available antivirals are effective against Tamiflu as well. And was given to at least one of the people who acquired infection. The people who did acquire the infection of relatively mild disease. Two of them were cases of conjunctivitis, and one actually did develop cough and no major symptoms. But in animals, there's no way of preventing containing. Not that I'm aware of. There are other mammals. Actually, one of the animals that's used in transmission studies is for the ferrets. Ferrets are very susceptible to this virus. And so you put ferrets in this cage, put ferrets in this cage, and put the cages close together to look for airborne transmission. But the other thing is ensuring that people that have their food, their chicken, their beef, and as well, so that 165 degrees before they send temperature and some pasteurization. I think that I'm not sure what our role is locally. The Commonwealth does have a sheet directed for people who have their own little farms, as well as commercial production of poultry, looking at the appropriate personal. One of them, of course, is eye goggles. Two of the three recent people had conjunctivitis, and presumably it was, being handling all the birds, which is very wrong. So eye goggles, gloves. Same is also true if you find a carcass, particularly a carcass of a was aquatic wild. So. Fox. It's going to be interesting. And it's I think it's reassuring to discover that the CDC and the NIH is already on this, and there is a company producing 4.8 million doses of the vaccine. Actually, priced it for this vaccine for 4.8 million people to be stored with need. And I also that up 2006. Similar, but the strength it did burn itself out, and they still have the shelf vaccine. It's not how much that would offer efficacy against this cold strain. That's interesting.
I did a little research on this myself. First of all, everything that I read supports what Noel says. I was reading about the idea of, do we have an actionable agenda item? In other words, there's something that we should do or could do or whatever. And in the first place, according to the United States Department of Agriculture bulletin today, there have been no cases of this highly pathogenic avian influenza or the H5N1 in the northeastern states. The closest to us is Ohio and North Carolina. And the spread of this through the different states has been thought to be related to the transportation of dairy cows themselves. 22 states have put bans on transportation or interstate transportation. Massachusetts is one of the states that hasn't. There have been no cases detected in beef herds. As Noel said, the majority of cases related to direct contact with infected poultry birds. And according to the CDC, the detection of cases in poultry in 2022, in January through April, that's the first quarter of the year, was 165 cases. And this year it's 30. So in terms of things burning out, this is 1/4, not 1/4, it's less than that. It's 1/6, 1/5 of the amount that was going in 2022. So that speaks to some of what you're saying about it possibly decreasing. And the United States Department of Agriculture has just initiated a voluntary pilot program to test for dairy farmers to test with incentives to test their herds, so that hopefully that will begin to also do things. So the reason we put this on the agenda is the board was approached by one of the local select boards to do this and to look at it, and that's a very reasonable thing to do. But I think from what Noel and you're saying, you don't see an actionable thing for our board at this present time.
Not at this time, unless we want to identify one of the bird flocks in our area. Trade, track down the owners and say you should be doing this until you the personal prevention. You should also be eliminating standing bottles of the water.
Do you think it's worth putting a little something out, say on a website, For those, so we've had chickens. Chickens have been on the Lennox, Romeo residence since 1928. But, hand washing is rare. It's just something you do immediately. You have a big thing, put it in the sink. Yeah, I mean, it's very, at least I know we do it. I don't know if it would be helpful just to send out a little reminder to people in the area that if you're considering a little flock, and some people have 2, 3 chickens in the backyard, isn't that nice? I get a fresh egg. What they should be proper handling and care. I don't know if there's enough of them.
I'll see what's on the mass.gov site,
Okay.
CDC site, and then put something on the website.
I don't think we have to reinvent the wheel there, but that's a very good suggestion, and Jim, that, you know, we could grab it from that post. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean,
Everybody agree with that?
We're very careful. We don't let them, we let little kids in the neighborhood look from the fence in, but nobody's allowed into the barn or to pet chickens. They're not pets.
I'll see what the, I can find.
If you can, if you can.
Any other discussion about, H5N1? Okay, thanks, Noel. Thank you, Diane. So let's move on to the next item, which is the green natural
Yeah.
areas. Who wants to take up that?
Well, I guess I could start in a way. In March, several of us went down to an all-day conference for public health at the Delaney House. And it was a subject that came up after lunch. I thought, okay, that's nice. And then I had someone approach me, very, I'm gonna say, very assertively, that wants something done. She's an older woman and she's gonna die soon, and I want green. And what are you gonna do about it? What is Tri-Town gonna do about it? It's gaining some popularity, but it's not something that's very common. So I started just digging around a little bit. There's a lot of information. I did speak with Sandy of the Berkshire Regional Planning. She's not aware of anyone in this area that's had it happen. Although Dalton was having a lot of ongoing discussion about getting something done. And there's 2 different things. There's home burials, which is its own ball of wax, because you have to put in a deed on your property. It has to be 500 feet from what, I mean, there's a lot of regulations. And Massachusetts has those regulations out. But it's the green burials and cemeteries that is where the gray area is. Cemeteries can actually say yay or nay. I asked St. Anne's, and St. Anne's is a nay. Anybody that's going to St. Anne's Cemetery is gonna do the whole 9 yards. They're going to Ned Roach and then the whole thing. Our superintendent of the cemetery said he was open for discussion, that he thought it was a very viable possibility, and he would like to see people talk about it. And there's different degrees of it. You know, you wouldn't get them bound. You could go to where you wear only cots. So everything is degradable, including what you wear on, you know, and put in dirt, whatever. But since there's more people asking about it, including Mary Beth, I didn't know if we wanted to do a little more research on it. If any of you in any of the towns have had anybody approach you about green burials. Nobody said that, well? Nope. Only you.
So then I'll add to Diane's,
But I haven't read about it.
yeah.
Do we want to do something? I mean,
So I had a couple thoughts. I mean, I talked to Diane, I talked to Noel, and I talked to Charlie and a few other people. So in this packet, about halfway through is sort of, so there's no state regulations on, I look at the home natural, you know, the green burial is an interesting name, but I kind of like natural, and Noel likes that idea as well. I look at it in 2 different ways. The cemetery situation, like most of the cemeteries have their own way of doing things. I don't want the Tri-Town boards of health be setting policies and regulations to tell cemeteries what they should and shouldn't be doing. So there's like the whole cemetery thing, like cemeteries are identified, they're approved as cemeteries. If they want to offer some type of green burial within the confines of the cemetery, it's like, I'm all for that. And if they don't, they don't. But then there's the other piece where it's like, I have a piece, I have 20 acres of land and I want to be approved for home burials. It's more of like a pre-planning stage.
Mm.
We can't approve 3 burials on the fly. Like, you know, we have a carcass, we have to get, you know, they have to get permits for transportation. And it's not something that we can just approve on the fly. So there's guidance here about what boards of health should be looking at. You know, a plot plan, a soil evaluation, certain setbacks, you know, gotta have a marker, you know, you gotta put something in the deed. And so rather than me spend the next 6 months going down a rabbit hole writing regulations based on one request, do we want to not do that and come up with some type of policy and say, here's a checklist. If someone wants to do a home burial, submit all the proper documentation. Then, you know, then we can approve it or whatever. I don't know if I want to spend effort or energy spending several months researching this and to create a regulation, or do we want to come up with some type of departmental policy? Because the way it stands now, if someone really wanted to do a home burial, they can pull this guidance out and approach the Lennox Board of Health and say, hey, will you approve my packet? And then the Lennox Board will say, okay, well, do you have a plot plan? Do you have a geological evaluation? You know, do you have this? Do you have that? Consideration of pathogenic diseases and so on and so forth. Do we want to just point people to the mass.gov guidance and say, you're interested in a home burial? Here's the guidance. Put your packet together, submit it to the Lennox Board of Health for review and approval, or the Lee Board of Health review, or you want to make it a departmental thing for me to review and approval based on this guidance, we can do that. I would rather not spend the next 6 months diving deep into this, writing regulations when there's very limited. I have no other requests in Lee or in Stockbridge other than Diane being approached by some individual in Lennox with. There is guidance out, it's just not a policy or a regulation. So it's not an actionable item tonight, it's really a discussion. But if we feel really passionate at the next tri-town meeting, which will be September-ish, I just need to know a little bit more guidance on what we want to do. Let's not reinvent the wheel. So we also can't have a property where we have a dead body and then it gets sold 20 years later and someone's trying to do a perk test and, you know, nothing's identifiable. So there are certain trigger points, but this is more of a planning thing. This is not something like on a Friday night, hey, well, I want to do a home burial. It's sort of like, I have a large piece of parcel, it's only for family members and descendants. We're not creating a new cemetery for random people. There's a lot of things that have to go into allowing to do this. And so someone's got to do a lot of homework before they even approach us.
What was motivating the person to?
It's funny because she said that she's very concerned with, the chemicals that are used. And she worries about the people that do the embalming, and it's not good for the environment, the whole 9 yards, and, that was her driving force, that she should be able to essentially just, be put in a wooden box and put somewhere and just let it be a natural decomposition, that no chemicals in it.
So
Chemically driven, environmental.
Jim seems to be making the case that there is already in place a protocol that can be accessed to do this. Is
But
that
she'd
right?
like to
With our
go,
approval.
she'd like to go into the cemetery. She doesn't want to go into the backyard. She wants.
So cemetery.
It certainly is.
And I don't want to get into,
That's tempting.
a debate to start to tell cemeteries how they should and shouldn't be doing their houses and protocols.
They would have their own.
Cemetery.
I think it'd be referred to the cemetery or find a cemetery that can meet her desire.
There's one up in
Cemetery rules and
Williamsburg.
policies, whether people can look at different cemeteries and do that.
And Dalton's looking at it and they've spent a significant amount of time with back and forth with language and stuff. And I don't have the bandwidth to do something that's not a major pressing need for.
Is that for cemeteries or your backyard?
Well, for cemeteries. So I would rather not the boards go down a path to tell the cemetery what they should and shouldn't be done.
There are 18 towns, there's 18 towns in the state that do it. I looked up one in Waterford, there's one in Lexington, there's one in Bonham, and I didn't.
They do it cemeteries?
They do in cemeteries. But again, they have designated, they have space where they've designated an area. And my husband during high school and college worked for a landscaper. They did all the mowing on the Church on the Hill Cemetery, which is the original one from the 1700s. And he said, he remembered one day somebody was on a riding mower. He looked over and the guy had gotten thrown because unbeknownst from the week before, the ground caved in. The wheel went in and the guy went flying. That he, in his thoughts, it was a little dangerous. You can't just plunk them in between, you know, I've got family site for four, so if I want, yeah. So there has to be a special section.
You know, some towns, and I don't know if Lee, Lennox or Stockbridge has cemetery commissions. That's what some, if the cemetery commission petitioned the Tri-Town Board of Health and asked us to support them on a policy, I think I would kind of look at the guide and say, okay, we can put this on the agenda, come up with some type of policy, but like, if that one person, I have gotten no phone calls on this at all, other than because Elias, myself, Diane, and Noel went through this training, and it's becoming a thing. But again, it's like all these different agencies just throw this stuff at the board's phone and say, oh, you write your own policies. It's like, but I think the guidance, if you spend a little bit of time looking at it, it's pretty well written. Just a matter of, okay, someone came to me tomorrow and said, I want to get my property approved as a green burial. What I would do as a department head, I would say, okay, take this guidance, submit to me a package.
Talk to your lawyer.
Because most of the towns meet routinely, separate outside of Tri-Town. We'll put this in front of the Lennox Board of Health for review and approval, and we'll do whatever. That's how I would handle it now.
But the only thing that we agree that cemeteries set their own policies and procedures. So first thing is refer them to their local cemetery.
Yeah.
To another cemetery. If somebody comes to us and says, I want to bury them in my backyard, that's a whole different story. And then
Yes.
we have to review all these policies and procedures, as well as having 3 months advance notice. So people can say, they died Friday and I want to bury them tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah.
That we should not be in a timeline like that. It should be done well in advance.
When you're getting.
And the policy, Elias, requires DEP to approve it.
Yes.
So not only do we have to review this packet, it's gotta go to DEP for approval. Good luck getting them approved.
Hydrogeologically, the DEP has to approve it. And that's not something that's gonna happen over a weekend.
So
So it's pre-planning. It's for someone, well, my age, you know, just, okay, we've got a couple of acres.
Yeah.
So when I do my estate planning, maybe I would ask the lawyer or whatever, not that I'm going to, I've got my space and say, but it takes time.
So I think, not that I think this is happening with the person Diane's working with, I think it's a great idea and thought behind it being about, but we all want to be environmentally sensitive based on the history, what's happened to our town for environmental impact. But I think, you know, they should talk to their cemetery, and if the cemetery wants guidance, we can offer some type of guidance. If someone wants to do a home burial, we'll point them to the guidance, and that's kind of like my thoughts. I mean, the cemeteries, we know where the cemetery is. We don't know someone buried in the backyard.
Well, Diane, where would you like to go with this?
So I thought tonight would just be a discussion as to whether or not we wanted to go anywhere with it, more or less. Did we want to discuss it in detail and make a motion that we leave it the way it is and refer people to the guidance that's already out there? I don't want us to really set policy for what the towns should be doing, but to be able to give reference to whomever might approach us to say, yes, it was discussed and it's our understanding that we should either handle it through the cemetery commission or the superintendent of cemeteries, or if you want your own backyard, that we can help you out with that. And let it go at that.
Or, not to give myself work, but I will, I could draft like the Tri-Town Department memo, where, you know, and kind of itemize, people should contact their cemetery commission for home burials. You know, we can put a link on the guidance, and, you know, indeed we need approval, and then just bring it to the September meeting. At least it's not a regulation, it's a policy, it's more just like a summary If you're interested in home burials, here's some of the steps you should take.
It's a guide.
The guide.
Yeah.
That's something you want me to throw a draft together for the next tri-town meeting, I'd be more than happy to do that.
It's not even tri-town, it's state.
Yeah, well, but we will put it on our website for our member towns,
For reference.
for reference.
Anybody approach it.
It's sort of how to wash your hands. in
So you two
restaurants, right?
things, one is I want to say burial, we refer them to the local cemetery, or the planning conditions. If they're talking home burial, there's a whole set of guidelines, we refer you to the Mass Department.
Is that an actionable thing you would like to make a motion and have me do? That's something actionable we can get through tonight with?
So.
So if someone wants to make a motion to have Jim draft a guidance doc to
I'll make a
review at the
motion.
next meeting. you can do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Diane, you want to make that motion, please?
I'll make a motion that Jim, draft a document that we can use for guidelines for people for from areas and have it presented at the September meeting for our further discussion.
Okay, thank you. Second, is somebody, John, you're seconding the motion? Okay, any more discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you, Diane.
Thank you.
Okay, so,
Citizen
I
speak.
think we have citizen speak time now. Do we have anybody raise their hand?
There's no one from the public that I can see, Mr. Chair, on Zoom. Anyone here wants to speak on behalf of Citizen Speak Time?
Okay, so then we've reached the bottom of the agenda there. Would anybody like to make a motion to adjourn?
Make the motion that this meeting, of the tri-town board help adjourn.
Thank you, Jordan. Okay, can we have a second? Thank you, Chris and John. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Thank
good.
you, everybody.
Thank you.